Hi, everyone. It's Aaron. We get together every week to talk about development priorities for Backdrop CMS. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm a quick sketch on the internet, core committer, and technical lead for the Backdrop project. I'm joined here today by a pretty good sized group. We'll go around and do some introductions to let everybody know who's in the meeting, where you're from, and if you've got any particular interests for today's meeting. So we'll go ahead and start with Robert, and then we'll go to Jen.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet in Altadena, California. No particular interests. I've been away for a while, and so I'm just back catching up.
Thanks, Robert. Jen, and then Tim.
Jen Lampton joining from Oakland, California.
Thanks, Jen. Tim, and then Joseph.
I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim, in Deerwood, Minnesota. And we'll just mention we had a great discussion in the previous meeting about the layouts for specific content types. So if you're interested in that, check out the previous recording. That's all.
Thanks, Tim. Joseph, and then Wes.
I'm Joseph. I'm a developer from Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'm interested in swappable config.
Awesome. Thanks, Joseph. Wes, and then Eli.
Hey, I'm Wes Rubalcaba. I am in Chicago now and starting a new job that's going to have quite a bit of backdrop stuff in it. So, yeah, excited to get back into the community.
Awesome. Thanks, Wes. For our viewers that may watch these meetings and haven't seen Wes before, Wes is the author of the Basis theme, and it's great to see you again, Wes. All right, Eli, and then Justin.
Hello, my name is Eli Lissick. I'm a developer calling from San Diego, California.
Thanks, Eli. Justin, and then Greg.
Justin Christopherson in Denver, Colorado, and help with the infrastructure mostly.
Go ahead, Greg.
Greg, I'm joining from Melbourne, Australia. Sometimes Greece, but not Melbourne. I'm finding it harder to find time to contribute during the work days, so I'm looking for opportunities to sprint for the next minor release. Interested in any way that I can help reviews or old pull requests that I need to refresh or things like that. That's it.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Yeah, as we've been kind of worried, the 128 release is right around the corner, actually. We've got just a little under 2 weeks before the feature freeze for 128. And 128 is looking pretty slim right now. I don't even think that there's even been a single issue in it yet, honestly, that's been resolved. There are a couple that are pretty close, though. We do have some 128 issues that seem like they're going to happen almost imminently. Things like password increasing password reset strength, password reset link strength, and some other user login improvements. But those are going to be pretty transparent to our end users. So we'll talk about the issues that we're going to try to push forward and see if we can get them completed in the next couple of weeks. Before I go further, Jen, there's some contrib updates.
We've had a little contrib activity recently. Let's see, we have a new contributor, Anna Heath from Giant Rabbit has joined the contrib group, offering to help maintain a handful of projects that are currently maintained by other Giant Rabbit folks, which is great. We have a couple of new contrib projects. We have IIV Dark, Rules Once, and Search Exclude NID all have had first releases since our last meeting.
Great. Thanks, Jen. All right, so let's talk about 128 possible issues. I'm going to start with the one that is the furthest along, and it's probably the most likely thing to get completed, and that's the swappable config storage, issue 2277. We've been stuck on this issue for a while now, but it's so close. 2277 is, it's had a pull request for a long time. We've tested it and been able to confirm that you can run Backdrop with a database-driven config system successfully. You can even run the tests, I think, successfully as long as you've installed your backdrop site with config in the database to start with. So if you, depending on how you install backdrop, if you run it out of the database only, then you can run the tests as the database only. And if you install it with the files, file-based config, then you can run tests on the files-based config. But the problem that we're encountering is that you can't run the tests on the opposite type of config, which could possibly be okay. But the bigger problem is that we can't get the GitHub action tests running, which also we're running them separately. So it's fine that one of them would be in files and one of them would be running the database. But for some reason, we're struggling to get that up and running. So that's our big blocker for 2277. But unlike some other issues, like this one has a very clear like blocker or issue that needs to be resolved. It's not clear what the technical solution is, but I would imagine, based on our previous efforts to look at it, it's probably, just finding that right section of 10 lines of code somewhere in Simple Test to get it working. So it's not a big amount of change that's necessary here. It's just figuring out whatever this small technical hurdle is, or big technical hurdle is. Go ahead, Greg.
Are we trying to run the full set of tests in both scenarios, or just a subset with the config in the database?
The pull request as it is right now only runs the config for file-based storage. It only runs the config test suite, and it only runs it on one PHP version.
For the database storage.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, for the database storage. We could ramp that up to the full set, or we could run it on multiple PHP versions. But yeah, at this point, we're just running the config tests.
So I did do a test where I tried to run all of them on the database, and there were quite a few failures. There were, I think it was basically all the unit tests failed. Because like a whole bunch of them were making assumptions about config files exist in the file system.
Interesting.
So they would, I don't remember exactly the details, but it was like they would check a config file setting and it would just fail because it didn't exist. So I think we would have to modify quite a lot of the tests to get them to run all in database.
Interesting. I didn't see that many failures, but it's been a little while since I've looked at it, so maybe I need to revise my optimism. But okay, that's good to know.
I think it's fine if we just run the config tests with the database. I've actually been using your pull request as my default dev environment for like a month now, and I've had basically no problems with it.
That's encouraging. One thing about this database config is that it's not exactly like going to cause end users a problem. Like they're not going to accidentally run into it, So I do kind of wonder about, if we could introduce it as quote a beta feature or something like that, that comes with a big asterisk on it. That's like, this thing exists, but there's, it's still got some issues to be worked out. I wonder, like, that could get our testing to like a broader audience, I think, if it were available. I know Pantheon users might be excited about it.
Have we discussed experimental? Is it a module? Could it be an experimental module? And have we discussed like specific reasons we do or don't want to use experimental modules?
This particular thing isn't a module. It's
It's essentially
Go ahead.
We have a couple of classes. We have essentially a config storage controller class.
Mhm.
And what this does is it adds a second one and then adds a way to specify that it should load a different config storage controller class so that you can say, use the file class or use the database class.
Yeah, the config storage system was built from the start to be swappable. It's just that we've only had one system in place for the extent of the life of Backdrop so far. And so, like Joseph is suggesting, this is also kind of discovering the corners of Backdrop that are assuming the file-based storage, and making it so that we run into some issues there. So no, we don't have experimental modules, but this wouldn't be like that anyway. It's possible that maybe we would make a change record describing the capability to turn it on, but then also describing its caveats at this point. Or a blog post, I guess that would work as well. If we wanted to announce it kind of in a more public fashion. But yeah, the amount of change that makes to the file-based config is almost nothing. It basically adds an if statement that's like, if the config is swapped, like if the config system is swapped, then load a different class. And that's about as much as it does to a file-based config site. So risk is really low for existing sites. I'll think a little bit more about that. Does anyone else have any thoughts about possibly moving forward on this, even if it doesn't have like 100% test coverage passing?
No, I'm not against it at all. If you think it's okay, I guess I just reiterate that I suppose the reason we have a fairly rigid do tests before we release is that if we don't, then they'll never
be fixed.
And
yeah,
so
you're absolutely right.
I would want to at least illuminate that point, but then make a decision on the merits of this specific case.
Yeah, it's totally valid, and I don't think I've ever let an issue in that didn't pass tests.
But that doesn't mean that this isn't a unique case and maybe warrants an exception. I don't know. That you have to kind of judge. So.
Yeah, I do think at the bare minimum, we do need to at least have the ability to run the tests. And so that is still like a big issue, and get it to running the config tests, I think is a minimum, because if we can't get the config test passing, we don't really know that this system works. And if we change stuff, if we're breaking stuff, we don't know if we've broken things. So, but there's a little bit of a difference in that we have to go through, possibly if we have to go through and change the unit tests to remove their assumptions, then that's different than breaking something that's existing. It's fixing the tests that themselves have some issues.
Speaking about failed tests, I haven't seen the Gremlin friend, the layout thing, how he figured out and fixed it, because I haven't seen it happening. The random failures on layout tests.
Yes.
Yes. Yep, we did fix that. Yeah.
Okay, I need to have a look at the result issues and see what it was. Okay.
I think it was, we added a dependency. There was like a module. I think it was dashboard needed to depend on layout.
Yeah, it was a one-liner in a .info file.
It was like a very rare chance that it would install dashboard before installing layout. And it was just totally random.
For many us for months. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that also comes up in the actual upgrade from Drupal 7, because if you had dashboard on Drupal 7 and you upgrade to Backdrop, your site explodes. So it's good that we fixed it anyway.
Yeah, that was the reason why we didn't have a lot of end users seeing the error, but we did have a lot of test failures in our own tests, is because the situation in which it occurred is if you still had dashboard module installed on your Drupal 7 website. And since everybody has dashboard turned off, apparently, along with overlay module, like Drupal 7 had some mistake modules. Yeah, so if you turned it off, then it wasn't an issue, but our tests always had it on, and then it was random whether or not it failed or passed based on which one got upgraded first.
We have some sort of like basic D7 setup that tests our upgrade path, right?
Mhm.
So that's where it was. Okay. cool.
Yeah, and dashboard module's always installed in that upgrade or in that database.
Well, can I just mention a new thing that I think we've discovered that I want to find out if it has bigger implications. So when I've been doing upgrades recently, using the D2B module, the dashboard link is there after the upgrade, and I couldn't figure out why, because of this site, the dashboard module was not installed before that. And what I've realized is that, of course, we're running D2B on an existing backdrop site where the backdrop dashboard module was installed before the upgrade, and the config file is still there after the upgrade. And that has me thinking, are there other things that might be affected in that same way? Where-
Yes, there are. I've pointed this out to Irina a couple of times because we keep running into this. Essentially, what we need to do is we need to like suck in the database from the Drupal 7 site and then delete the existing config and then run the upgrade.
Yeah, I thought we fixed that a while ago. I worked on that too. I'll look at it.
No,
Is it
it seems to still be a problem.
Similar things happen like with menus and taxonomy and other stuff like that and
Yeah.
permissions.
And if
So
your
I'm-
like user roles had IDs and then in backdrop they're like strings and stuff. Yeah.
Right. And then it like duplicates all your roles.
Yeah.
I've been going back and forth on whether this is a D2B issue or a core issue, but I think it's more
It's
of
a
a core
D2B issue.
Well, is it?
Because there aren't going to be any configuration files in your Drupal 7 site.
If you do, no, but if you the traditional upgrade process doesn't. I
You're
haven't
not
done it for a
copying
while.
configuration files because there aren't any.
Okay, so
Right.
you don't spin up the site first before
No.
you.
You
Okay,
just drop the code on your Drupal 7 site.
nope. Okay, then it would be then it would be a D2B issue, I think. Yeah. Okay. That's all.
Yeah, it's an interesting question though. Okay, so let's pivot back to 128 if that's okay.
Yeah.
So swappable config, probably our best 128 like big feature possibility. There's also 364, which we spent entirely like last week or the week before. Almost the whole dev meeting was about the icon system. So you can go back and look at that video on 364. The icon system issue, I've only pushed like minor changes to it, but it still needs quite a bit of fundamental stuff. It doesn't have test coverage, for example. It needs more documentation. It needs more testing. I'd be and possibly even adding the flat icons on top of the outline icons. So right now it's using phosphor icons, but it only includes there's 6 variations of the same 1,500 icons. And we're not going to add all 6 of them, but right now there's only one variation, the outline version or the normal version. And we should possibly include the filled version because all of our current icons used everywhere in Backdrop are actually fill icons. And if we want to maintain some consistency with what we had before, or just our opinions about which icons look best, including the filled icons would make a lot of sense and provide flexibility for users that also want to make that choice.
Can we, just an idea, can we include one, like maybe filled or whatever, if that's the one that's closest to what we're doing currently, and then also provide a contrib module as an example of how to add the entire other set of icons?
Yeah, we could. I think that would be best for, I don't know, I feel like that would be good for including like the bold and the thin versions, you know? But I do kind of wonder about
The Zine theme is using Duotone, by the way.
okay. One thing about it is that there's not like an ability right now for it to distinguish between variants. Like, so you couldn't just say, make all of my icons thin or make all of my icons filled. where the icon is used, you need to explicitly say use the thin version versus use the filled version. And I think my opinion is that
Wait.
that makes sense to maintain that like discretion about which icon should be used in which places, because I think that it's totally possible that you might want a filled icon next to a normal icon, depending on what that
Yeah.
icon actually looks like.
Yeah, I like
Could
for
you-
social media, you often need different ones in order to get them to match.
Mhm.
Could you add a concept of like a source and then add like an optional second parameter that would say use from this source? And then you could add like the normal versus the filled as two different sources. That way you could have a default and it would just use whichever one is your default. But then you could also in one spot say, no, I really want this source.
There kind of is that ability. There's yeah, okay. Sorry, we're gonna talk more about it anyway, I guess.
Yeah, I was just thinking like
And
this seems like
I-
a really great use case, the like multiple versions of icon seems like a really great use case for testing the flexibility of the module. And so I was like, rather than including two versions, let's just test the flexibility of the module and make sure we can swap one for the other or load both or whatever people need. That was my point. So I'm gonna mute now. Go ahead.
My question is the variation included in the icon name? Is that how it works? So is it a suffix that says das thin? Okay.
Yep, that's right. So, so this is the way that you print an icon and the various ways in which you can access it from JavaScript, from CSS, and in a template file. And so right now you just say print icon name. So you would say like print pencil, for example, or print pencil dash pad, I think is what this icon is called. So this is what it looks like with the phosphor icons. Oh wait, no, sorry. This is what it looks like with the Font Awesome icons that we have as PNGs right now. And then this is what it looks like with Phosphor. And so this is actually kind of a good example here where this is all normal icons with the outline type format. But when we chose the icons for these manually out of Font Awesome, you can see we used a filled icon for the gear, but we used an outline icon for the pencil with pad. Same with system, this is an outline, but development's wrench is a filled icon. You know, like we chose these separately and manually.
We
And
didn't choose them. This is just what was available in Font Awesome. They're all mixed.
oh, really?
Yeah, there's no distinction.
Oh,
Yes.
maybe this is just an improvement on icon system since Font Awesome
Exactly.
was released.
Yep.
I think Font Awesome has different sets, and then not every icon is available in every set, or
Right.
certain variants. Like one of the phone variants is in the free version, but the other phone variants are paid. And so
Yeah.
you can have like solid phone for free, but outline phone is a paid feature.
That's just devious.
But yeah, it's I like the current thing because it's like it brings more consistency.
Well, anyway, the way that they're accessed right now is that you would say like pencil dash pad to get this thing. But if you wanted the filled version, in Phosphor, it's just a different name. And so the file name would be pencil dash pad dash filled, for example. I don't know. Now you guys are making me question my whole like, you know, a module gets to choose, you know, when an icon is placed, which one should be used, you know, like, or a theme gets to choose like between normal and another one. If you guys are suggesting there should be some kind of switching or global system for like overriding the variant that is used.
Well, there is a system for overriding as long as it's the same name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So another, I mean, I don't know if we want to do this, but another option would be just to duplicate all the icons with the same name in like a subdirectory or something like that. And then the module would just append the subdirectory to generate the new name for the icon. So it is possible to use that system. You'd have to rename all the icons.
Yeah. Yep.
if for this library.
Yeah.
Mm,
So like, what are you guys describing here with like the contrib module that provides the variants, for example?
I was thinking it would add additional, like it would add, like rather than us adding two sets of icons to core, we would add one set of icons to core, and then we could have a contrib module that adds like all five of the other
Mhm.
ones, right? And then that way we would be an example of like, here are all the icons you get for free, here are all the other icons for free, as in core. The other icons you get with the pro version, just the contrib module.
Yeah.
And that way we would allow people to do things like choose, for any given particular project if they want different icons, but we would sort of standardize on everything in core is always outline. And then that way for, contrib, they would choose an outline one and it would be consistent with core. I don't know. That was just what I was thinking.
mm.
Yeah, the only thing that doesn't work very well with outline is, as it is currently, the admin bar. Field icons work much better in the admin bar. So if you look,
Yeah, here's the
The
two
si-
versions of
yeah,
that.
the side by side, the outline is very, I don't know, accessibility wise, like
Yeah, hard to see.
not
I
as
don't know why I can't zoom on that, but oops. Oh gosh. GitHub's not helping me here with the zoom. It's like yeah. I wish I could make this bigger, but for some reason this image.
Kind of obvious though when you look at it small, like it's
Yes.
almost easier to tell the problem because you can't see the images. That's the
Yes.
point, right? You can't.
which made it a use case for actually including the field
Field
variant
ones.
for core,
Or only the field.
or use the field one. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I saying? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like if we were only to include the normal icons, for example, then you would just have the icon name without specifying a variant. That would make it way simpler for a module to come in and say, okay, I want to swap all of the icons in the whole site to a different variant. At the same time, like thinking about a module doing that, like the swapped icons might look awful, compared to an opinionated use of icons in specific places. So I kind of wonder about like
The other thing is, the other
the
thing is that
desirability of that.
if we provide two of them in core, we already have a use case of a module that needs the field, a different variant. So and that would be the admin bar module.
Yeah.
We would have an example within core that showcases how you can use two different sets. However, that means that
But
we
if
provide.
we
Sorry, go
think the solid ones are more accessible in the admin bar, maybe that means we should use the solid
Use the
ones
solid ones.
everywhere if they're more accessible.
Mm. Um,
Yeah, I'll go ahead, Joseph.
okay, so I think there's two separate issues here. So let's say you have another module that provides another icon library, and they are named differently. That module now has to provide mappings for everything. For instance, as an example of one that I found recently, Phosphor and Photos both have a controller icon, but Material has a Stadia controller icon.
Huh. Yeah.
And it does not have an icon named just controller. So you'd have to provide mappings for all of those. So I think it'd be a good idea if you provide, like if you had the Material icons module installed, which doesn't exist, by the way. And you just wrote Stadia controller, it would know this only comes from one provider and just grab it from that one provider.
It does do that, doesn't it? Fallback, Nate? Yeah.
Yeah, it would do that. But if you called Stadia controller without the module, then it wouldn't print anything. Or actually, it would print an error right now saying cannot find icon.
Okay.
So, but that, could be, again, desirable. Like if you had something that depended on that icon, then that module should be a dependency.
Mhm.
Yeah, and also I think icons that only exist in one place are going to be extremely common in regards to themes, because
Right.
themes could just they could have a whole suite of icons that are outside of the core set. And so that's going to be commonplace that you'd have one of this only comes from one place icon.
Right. Like if you have like an artist who's making custom I don't know, custom assets for you, and you want to be able to place those custom assets.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I think it should, so I think there should be sort of like a fallback and like a way of saying, okay, this only comes from one place. I'm just going to grab it from there, even though that's not the default, without overriding everything. And then I think that it would be good to have like, okay, another example, you have the Font Awesome module installed in order to use specific icons, but I don't want the Font Awesome module to override all the core icons.
I don't think does it do that now, Nate? I don't think it does.
It doesn't.
Unless you
Yeah.
specifically say, yeah, I think that was just something, Joseph, I said as like a harebrained idea. I'm not sure it was a demand. It's just like,
Okay.
what if we
But
made
if-
a contrib
but if
module,
we-
but
But if the Font Awesome module has to take all if they have to take all the icons and rename them to match the phosphor icons and then put them in there, it would overwrite them.
Correct. Yep.
I can see a problem when both the admin theme and the front end theme have icons, and you want to use a specific icon set for the front end and keep the core backend, despite the fact that they have same names. So it feels that we do need a way to distinct between the source and say that this module or this theme wants to use that source.
Yeah, there actually is an option for that. Hey, by the way, here's how you look at one particular commit, Greg.
Okay.
That you click on commits, so there's only these two, and then click on the second one.
Okay.
Remember that this just shows you the code without all of the icons, so it's much more manageable. I put something in here for this called immutable. And it's an option that gets passed in. Wait for me to view this that isn't bad. Trying to figure out how to turn off the side-by-side view. Oh well.
It's at the
Files-
top, it's at
files
the top
changed.
left. Yeah, it's at
Yeah.
the top left.
Top
on the
left?
top middle, files changed. But oh, you can't only do that for one commit.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Mm.
I didn't realize that. Maybe this is
I think it's part of either the cogwheel or the file filter thing at the top left, I think. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, unified.
There you go.
Okay, great.
Nice, thanks.
All right. So if we look at oh, except now it's not in here.
No, is it?
Yeah, that's weird.
Maybe not all files are loading.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe. Oh, okay.
Collapse.
Well, for whatever reason, now I got what I want. Now I hit back, so now it's showing. That's weird. Okay, so one of the options that you can pass to it right now is this immutable option. And immutable basically means that whoever provides an icon first, that
Wins.
icon is actually always the one that wins and can't be overridden. So if something is provided by core and you say, I want the immutable version of this, then you get core's version, even if a module or theme overrides it. And if a module provides an icon and you request the immutable version, the theme can't override the module version. I'm not sure that that's the best solution, but what it does allow us to do is the admin bar icons, we could specify all of them as immutable so that they would show the same on the front end and on the back end, regardless of if a theme tried to override it.
Yeah, this provides fine grade control because you can specify immutable per icon, right? Or icon set.
Yeah, you can specify it per icon when you render it. So
Yes.
when you render the icon, you say, this one, I want it to always be the core icon and don't use any theme provided one.
Yeah. Whereas
But-
the source would be a similar thing, but global. Like this entire module, always immutable, every icon specified or something like that. In essence.
Yeah, you also could, if you wanted to not override icons like Font Awesome, for example, you could also just namespace them differently, where all of the icons could be FA dash icon name. And so if you wanted to call the Font Awesome one versus the core one, they could just have different names and just namespace them.
But so you can change a file name if it's a file, but if it's a font, you can't do that.
Yeah, you have to do the mappings thing.
Yeah, well, a font,
Rename your files.
yeah.
I think it doesn't work with icon fonts anyway. So you'd have to extract
true.
out the SVGs anyway.
That's true.
Yeah, it fundamentally is pretty opinionated that it uses SVGs. It's like you could maybe with a lot of hacking get it to use icon fonts, but it's really
It's probably best to.
yeah, it's probably best to use SVGs anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so the original question was, do we include 2 sets of icons?
Yes.
And sounds like no. But our preference is not the one that's there now, which is a problem.
Yeah, I still wanted to come back to this. This is why I pulled up the Phosphor website. I think this little icon thing they have up here at the top is a good little example, and maybe there's better ones, but all of these icons across the top are all normal up until you get to the send button, which is paper plain, but you can see that it's filled. And I feel like this is an important design consideration that like mixing outline and filled icons is a design decision, and you need to be able to use both of them side by side. That you
Like-
can't have
Like if that's
interfaces.
a way to emphasize something.
Yeah.
Like, does it convey meaning? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's
I think
like,
its presentation is important, that you can't just blanket replace all of the icons from one set with another set in a different variation and have it have the same meaning.
Yeah, the filled paper airplane icon is actually used for send in like a bunch of different apps.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a use case for regular icons in core, not filled ones? Is that what you were saying, Nate? Is that you think that
Oh, no. Well,
there is
my-
a use case for
Yeah, well-
regular icons?
my overall point here is that when you call an icon, you should specify its variant. And
Well, if there are variants, right?
yes, and I'm saying that there should be a way to distinguish between variants as well, between outline and filled.
Right, but so in core, if we only include filled
Mhm,
and you add the contrib module for outline,
mhm.
your way to distinguish would be calling the file name for outline when you want outline,
Yep.
right? That's
Which would,
already
yeah,
So-
which means all of core would be print.
remain the same.
No, it would be print icon name dash filled. We would specify filled everywhere.
Okay, but
Wait,
And another use case would be icons that have dual states for enabled or disabled and things like that. So you would need the field, I guess, to be pressed or whatever, or you could use it that way.
you could use color as well for that.
Yeah, or
yeah,
color.
Yeah,
I don't
if
think
you
we
want,
do that currently.
yeah, if
but
you
we
wanted to do like
could.
a CSS swap where it's like filled versus outline, then you would add both icons that you need with backdrop add icons or via library, and then use CSS to like do the swapping.
Could we have the icon name and the set as separate parameters instead of as a single parameter?
The variant, you mean?
Yeah. Rather than making it all a single string that has to be.
Well, you have to change the single string anyway, because they're gonna be different names in different sets.
Yeah, we could, Joseph. That's a good question about like how we want to handle it. In a way, like the way that this is being implemented is, like I've said a couple times, super opinionated, that we just use the name of the icon from the Phosphor set, and Phosphor conveniently names the variants, the file names with the variant in it. So it's literally called paper airplane filled. That's the .svg. So even though there's six different directories in the download, inside of each directory, the file names are all different. They include the name of the variant in them.
Interesting.
So the phosphor,
Yeah, phosphor.
whatever that's called. The contrib module could do something tricky where it give you an interface for like which thing you wanted, and then it could like write the file name however it wanted, but it would still call the same core pattern. It would just put in whatever icon name it had generated, because Phosphor knows how those names are generated. But if you had like a Font Awesome module, it would need to do a mapping from the Phosphor name to the Font Awesome name when it needed to replace it with something else.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
because the naming convention that we're using is just phosphors. Because really there is no consistent naming convention between different icon systems.
Yep.
Yeah, but since I know we're running out of time, but we've really already run down this route here. But we still have Wes with us, don't we? Yeah, Wes, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, the solid ones are good. I enjoy, if something is going to be large, I think the outlined one can look like cooler, I guess. But it doesn't matter. I mean, this is it's going to look good either way. Basically, like, I'm not sure that's worth the effort. And you know, we can go. That's an easy fix if we really want to go back and I don't know. But I do think having outlined and solid in core wouldn't be bad, even if we don't plan on using the outline one much, if at all. Like it maybe it'd be used on the cards in basis, or you know, like I think having both options in core could be nice.
It is one of these funny things where adding 1,500 icons versus adding 3,000 icons is basically what we're talking about. But in both situations, we're only going to be using less than 1% of the available icons.
In core.
Well, but
in core, yes.
but we might, like, if it's a one line change to add an icon, we might just start putting icons all over the place.
Yeah, which I think we probably will, honestly.
Yes.
So then
So
do
my
we want to
I have
provide?
a half. Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
my
a
gut's like
half-baked.
we should only include one or it's gonna be a mess.
No, not necessarily. I have because I couldn't I couldn't switch to the pull request to review the actual pull request in my browser was crashing. I have a half-baked comment on that issue, and it included, hey, we are using icons in the log, the recent logs. We are using an icon that was not taken into consideration, which is when we have alerts in the admin bar, there's the red dot with the one, which could be an icon which exists already, a numbered icon there. We have the ticks and the X's and the information and the warnings in the messages. So these are the things that came like at the top of my head when I was reviewing that.
Yep. I think we have a list of those places. Yeah, here. Yeah, there's definitely more places.
Are there logical groups of icons? Like could we be like, yeah, we're not gonna add the brand icons or etc. to kind of reduce the amount of like it would make there's not.
No.
I mean, I think having the complete set, so there's like a couple of different reasons for doing this issue, right? Well, one of them is like our icons need to be replaced, like backdrops. But another one is like we wanted to provide a utility that would make it easier for everybody else to have icons. And I think like social icons or something like that's the most common thing people are going to want to use. And so I think if we want to like make people not have to decide which icons to use, that would not be something to remove. So there could be just a bunch in there that like maybe we aren't using, but without having the complete set, it feels like we're not providing that complete
Yeah, and
feature.
remember that there's use cases where the site is used like as an intranet or as an application, and people build things that have icons. So they wouldn't have to add any icons. They would just need to figure out the name of the icon that they need, check it in there, and then they build, like they would be able to build custom things more easily. And this is the point of adding it, right?
One of the points, yeah.
Yeah,
One
one
of
of the points.
One of the points, yes, not the point. And one of the point that I was making is that this is based on GitHub. It has version control, so eventually we're gonna update the because they add icons every now and then. So
Mhm.
maybe every minor release we need to include the new release that was recent, just to accommodate these icons that are fixed and things that are added. Maybe the backdrop icon might eventually be added there, and we use that in the admin bar. I think I can't remember where it was used.
Yeah.
Yeah,
By the way, I added a backdrop icon.
as an SVG, yeah.
Yeah, SVG under the icons directory and with the same spacing and formatting as the rest of Phosphor. So
Is it just the square?
yeah, just the square.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
now we can do the square in the reverse without having to have two different theme
Yep.
Yes.
files.
Yes.
So that's really cool. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all we have to do is file a pull request against the repository for Phosphor, and it will be included. So it's because it's open source and it's magic.
Oh,
Yeah,
Nice one, Greg.
so it was for this icon. Oh gosh, I don't know why GitHub's not showing it, but right here, this icon
Yeah.
on the dashboard. Yep.
that's great. Okay, so question is one version or two versions? Should we vote? It sounds like Nate wants two. Greg, how many do you want?
I
Anyone
wanted
else have thoughts?
just because, and as I said, the two reasons why I know that having one is just to keep things simple, but
Yeah.
two is because I see two use cases like the dashboard icons and the rest of the UI versus the admin bar. And also the other thing is API wise that we will be showcasing within core how you can switch between two, or
Maybe. We don't have a use case for that yet. But we
Yeah.
could.
Yeah, I would be tempted to do what Greg's saying and use the solid icons, the filled icons in the admin bar and use the regular icons everywhere else.
But look how much it clashes with the backdrop icon.
Do
Do we have a backdrop outline? I don't even know if that would work. Maybe it
Yeah,
would.
I kind of feel like we should use the real logo for it's a special case.
That's true. I also feel like right now, because Font Awesome is already a mix of solid and outline, like even if all the contributor developers make different decisions, we're not going to be any worse off than we are today. So in terms of like visual aesthetic. So if you guys want to, let's do two. So it sounds like I'm the only one that doesn't want to. So two it is. Wes said two. Actually, Wes said four.
I'm missing the chat here. I see Dr. Holman joined us, and I feel bad because we spent the whole time talking about icons, not this other issue, which was specifically requested that we talk about, which is
Oh, boy.
SVG image support. Yeah,
Well, it's related, right?
it is related.
Because
Kinda.
both have to have the sanitization.
Yeah, that's the common thread between them is that both of them include some form of SVG sanitation / checking to make sure that nefarious SVG isn't output. The one really big difference between them, though, I feel like the icons that are being provided here are curated versus this is allowing arbitrary images to be uploaded through an image field. And so the security sanitization in this issue is arguably much more important than this one is because a module is providing the icons or a theme or a core, not a user. And so the amount of sanitization on here, this is just like, oh, a nice to have. Basically, we could have no sanitization. It would probably be okay. This one, sanitization is pretty important because normal users don't think of SVGs as dangerous, but they can contain JavaScript, apparently iframes, style tags. They can contain all kinds of things that could potentially be like a vector of attack. And so this is a big question here about like should this issue be a prerequisite for the icon library? Or should we like figure out some other way? Like either we could remove sanitization from this one because it's not terribly important. Or we could split out the sanitization from this issue, make it its own thing, and then build the icon library on top of just the sanitization from this one. Or we could do both. We could try to get this one finished, do it as a prerequisite, and then add icon library on top of it.
Can we do sanitization in the icons API in a way that's not like backdrop core function? So that when sanitization for SVGs goes in, that's the only like sanitization option that's available? Or do we want to make like a simple sanitize and like an admin XSS versus like, do we want to have two different levels of sanitization available to any contrib project?
Yeah.
Like what's the,
I see your, if I'm picking up what you're saying, you're suggesting that whatever sanitization we add here shouldn't be an API. It should just be like private functions
yeah.
so that we
Or
can swap it
could
out
it? Does
and
that
then
make
use
sense?
this one instead once it's
Is-
available.
But what if somebody else provides a module that does something with SVGs and wants to sanitize the ones that it provides? Like, do we need a SVG admin or like some kind of less? I don't know. That's my question. It's like, can we either not have it be one, or if we do, can it be used differently, called differently, or leveraged somehow in a simpler way?
I'm trying to find where, okay, here it is. Here's the sanitization here. Yeah,
So
this is
just to jump in there a minute. We actually had an actual SVG sanitization library in there before. And I got lots of comments that said, why are we having a whole library when Nate's PR for the icon thing just uses filter XXS? So just a couple of days ago, I decided, okay, if that's the case, then we'll just get rid of the huge sanitization library, which is quite a big library, and just use filter XXS using tags, just like your PR did. So that's what we did. So if we want to keep actual separate library, I could put that back in. But I just thought I would try and see what that looks like, just the filter XSS.
Yeah, when I was reviewing it, I just wanted to avoid duplication. So instead of adding it specifically to either of the modules that are being touched in its separate pull request, maybe like do the same thing in both pull requests, and whichever gets merged first wins, because that's what we will end up using.
Yeah,
I just-
actually looking at this, it's less different than I thought, since Dark Moment you already switched it over to filter XSS. The only thing that's different is that my pull request has a different list of tags. It's honestly a lot more restrictive than this one. And it seems like it probably should be the other way around, where this one would be the more restrictive of the two. But yeah, it is kind of a question too, of like, how far do we take this with these with the filtering of SVGs? I didn't get a Postman comment here, but like pending, but like iframe, for example, is like an allowed tag inside of an SVG, and that's a real eyebrow raiser for me, going, really?
I think it's funny that things like iframe or script like A are allowed inside of an SVG tag, and B like that they get handled and rendered the way that you would expect from those tags.
Yeah.
Inside
Yeah,
of SVG.
it allows for attributes as well, and it like I was looking at accessibility of SVG the other day, and it specifically requires that the title attribute is the first one that comes within the SVG thing. So anyway,
So maybe this like allowed SVG tags becomes a system
that's what I was
function.
thinking.
Yeah, and then we can use filter XSS.
Yeah, we can call it filter XSS for now, and if we decide to replace with something else in the future, then we replace it with something else, or
Filter
contrib or
SVG.
yes. So contrib or custom things can hook onto whatever we provide. But core uses, it's basically similar to what we do with the compatibility layer, where we simply call another function.
So we
Us.
could have a filter XSS SVG function. It's just a wrapper around filter XSS in our
exactly.
list of tags. And then in the future, if we have to change our list of tags, it'll all contrib that's used that will be more secure. I like that, Greg.
Yeah, I like that too. To have that be yeah. It makes me wonder, like we're kind of all over the place here. Like this pull request adds a bunch of stuff to image.inc, images SVG. But then it also adds, actually it's less core things than I thought, but there's like file, stuff in file module, but this actually makes
That's
sense
fine.
too, now that
Yeah.
I look at it. But I do kind of wonder like if there should be, namespace under SVG, or like if we should put it all under file or put it all under image or something,
Or
So
all
it-
under system. Like
I
if
don't know.
icon
But what
API is gonna
exactly
use
on
it.
the file? I'm not. I didn't quite understand what you were
The
mentioning.
name, the names of the functions, for example, like if like filter
Oh, I see what
XSS,
you mean.
yeah,
So,
filter XSS SVG. I guess maybe that would go in, Common or Bootstrap. I'm not sure where filter XSS lives right now. But like SVG allowed extensions, would that be image SVG allowed extensions? If we wanted to put it all under image.inc.
yeah, I agree with that. I did find trying to do this, and now that you bring it up, as you know, file module went in most recently when we copied the huge file entity module, the file entity. So I find as if to me there seems to be some sort of duplication sometimes of not just the namespaces of how things are done. We have a list of extensions on the file module, and we have a separate list of allowed extensions on the system as well. Sometimes it gets a bit confusing as to which module is allowing what. Maybe we should be able to consolidate those things at some point.
That's a good idea.
Well,
We have-
unfortunately,
Yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Last thing, we have quite a few underscore filter something functions here and there, which basically, like even the first example that I provided uses filter XSS within it. So it's not uncommon that we use
yeah.
a helper function that basically calls filter XSS and other things. So
Yeah.
we can do that for now, so we can provide the basic filtering, and if in the future we want to improve that, then fine, we can do that. Or allow contrib to and custom code to override it.
Well, these are for filter module though. This is a little different than our like XSS filters. I don't know. Are they different though? If you're uploading an SVG, it's also HTML. Yeah, it's a question. It's a good question.
Well, I think moving forward, there's still plenty of work to be done in both pull requests, test coverage, for example, in both of them. That we can push both of them forward separately and then try to move towards unifying them as we go along. We don't have a lot of time left, though. So a big question about whether or not these would be feasible for 128 or not.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if this one will be feasible, but I agree that there is quite a bit of work left to be done. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to do all of it, to be honest. So I think
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
About icons.
I think the icon ones looks quite good to me. I think that one looks quite close. This one, I'm doing this one in minutes and hours every now and then. So I'm not sure I'll be able to finish. And this one, I think, probably seems a little bit more complicated in terms of the functionality than the icons, I suspect. So
yeah, the security risk is a lot higher.
Yeah. But I think we need to make bigger decisions about what to do about the sanitization thing. I'm still not quite sure that we've considered all the ramifications and whether we should go with well, maybe you could tell me now what your opinion is. Is it fine? The library we had before was a huge beast of a thing. I mean, classes by the dozen to sanitize SVGs, and it seems to me reducing it to just filter XSL, just a couple of tags, we must be missing something that huge library was doing. So I think it would be best if we looked more closely into what those guys who wrote that sanitization library were actually doing with that library. And if there's
Mhm.
anything else we should be considering apart from just that simple filter XSS.
Yeah. What I think we should maybe pursue is I bet that library was trying to be comprehensive of like allowing everything that SVGs can do, but also making it safe. And what I think maybe what we should pursue instead is a much more conservative, like we support SVG images, like that have paths and things like that, and things that include iframes or style tags or script or whatever. Our tag list should be way more aggressive and just only allow conservatively SVG images to be displayed. And if you want other more complex SVGs that do things, then use a file upload. Maybe that would be
That
acceptable.
sounds reasonable. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got to drop. Sorry, we're way over time, and I've run over another meeting. Sorry that we didn't talk more about this, but I really do like the idea of, finding the commonalities between these two. I kind of like, Greg, your idea of also just like maybe do it the same thing in two places and, keep an eye on the other pull request, and then whichever one goes first, might be the thing the other one uses.
We've done it in the past. Yeah. So,
And it does need a lot of work, I think. So it'd be great if we had some more eyes just criticizing the SVG PR for me, please. That would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. And thanks for all the work. And yeah, let's keep going. Okay. Bye, everybody.